All right, I want to welcome everyone to Life After High School. I'm glad that you guys are here. My name is Lane Meek. I serve as the family pastor here at Fearless Church, and my bride and I, Laura Meek, have been fortunate enough to raise two young men who know and love the Lord and have actually moved away from home. A little applause there. Yes. This is good. So our youngest is Mason. He's 24 years old. He graduated from A&M with a degree in industrial engineering. He is married to Sydney 4 years ago. And last June, or a year ago June, they brought us our very first granddaughter, Dolly Jean. Nice, strong Southern name. And she is just precious. Just be thankful that I saved you from the grandparent picture on my slideshow, which is, I think that's like a thing now. When you become grandparents, you just show pictures all the time. And then our oldest is Hayden. Hayden is with me tonight. He'll turn 28 this month, and he graduated from Hardin-Simmons in Abilene and is about to start with the Air Force in January, we hope. It's been postponed like 3 or 4 times. He's going to be an RPA pilot flying drones, so we're super excited for him. And so welcome. We are glad that you're here. Hayden, you have any
Guys, thank y'all
comments?
so much for having me here. I'm so excited about this journey, this next step in y'all's life. It's been so fun watching Dad go through this life after high school and kind of seeing some of the trials and errors that happened through mine and my brother's life and seeing that formed into a fully functioning program. It's when I have a wife and kids one day, I'm really excited to be able to take them through this.
Cool. All right, so tonight we're going to have some fun. We've got a lot of information. You're going to be drinking from the fire hydrant tonight. But we hope to give you guys some information that you'll be able to take away from here. Because that is not our goal for tonight. It's very simple and straightforward. And it's really, tonight is to be a starting point. We want to create an open dialogue that is just really transparent between students and parents. And we want you guys to know we're not going to cover everything tonight. By far, there's no way that we can broach every single subject when it has to do with life after high school. But we've got a pretty detailed tool that we're going to give you guys tonight that you're going to start on. You won't finish it tonight. If you did finish it tonight, you really didn't go over it because it's pretty lengthy. But we're hoping is that after you get started tonight, you take it home and in the coming weeks, you're able to sit down, have a dialogue, and discuss these things with each other and be able to move forward. So that's our goal for tonight. The material that we're sharing, it comes from multiple sources. One, Laura and I had some great mentors that led us down a great pathway. And we also studied some experts in the field, and quite honestly, some of the things that we're going to be sharing with you guys tonight are just simple mistakes, failures that we had in our own parenting. But we want to be able to bring those things to you guys so you guys don't make the same mistakes that we did. So that's where we're coming from tonight, and I want to share with you too that some of the things that we'll be talking about tonight, they may challenge your own predispositions about what you think about life after high school should be. You may be coming in here tonight saying, as a student, I know exactly what I want to do after high school. I know what I want to do in 5 years from now. I know what I want to do in 10 years from now. Parents, you may be coming in here, I know exactly what you're going to be doing after high school and what you're going to be doing 5 or 10 years. I would ask that y'all set that aside for tonight and just come with an open mind to hear a fresh perspective on something. Some of the things are going to sound familiar. Some things you may never heard before, and some things you may even disagree with, and that's okay. The cool thing about tonight is just really to open up that dialogue so moms and dads can start talking about this kind of stuff. So before we get started, let's pray. Father, thank you for tonight, and I thank you for the families who have come here tonight to just really discover what it is that's out there. What's going to happen after high school? How, as a parent, how can they lead their student? Father, I pray that as students walk away from tonight, that they walk away with more confidence maybe than what they came in with. That maybe there's some things to talk about here. But Father, more than anything, I pray that there's a connection between parent and student. I know sometimes that those are difficult. Some relationships are better than others. And so, Father, regardless of where that is on the continuum, I pray that this relationship is deepened today, that they are able to have some dialogue, some discussion that they've never had before. So, Father, we just ask your presence here tonight. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Awesome. So, little layout about how tonight is going to work. First off, we're going to, Dad's going to walk you guys through the new Fearless Families family ministry strategy, the flight plan, and the 6 different milestones. Tonight, we're going to be drilling into milestone 6, but he's going to give you all a brief walkthrough through all that. Then we're going to introduce the process of putting together vision. What does this look like this next 5-10 years for you guys after high school? Let's pin that down into a plan and then finally an agreement that you can take with you as you go into these next few years. During this time, we're going to talk a little bit about taking ownership of your faith and how we view these next few years, not so much as how do I take this next step into being successful in a societal standard, but how do I view this with an eternal lens of how do I become a vessel for Christ more effectively? Finally, then, students, I'm going to take you guys. We're going to go in another room, and we're going to drill into some questions. We're going to have a Q&A time. Parents, y'all going to stay in here, and we're going to ask some questions. The only rule is there are no rules. All questions are going to be encouraged, and frankly, some of those may not be questions you feel comfortable asking with your parents around, and that's what that time's going to be for. Finally, we're going to come back. We're going to have a meal. We have an awesome meal prepared for you guys tonight. And then the best part of why anyone gathers in Texas, at least, is the meal. So
you will eat well tonight.
We're going to talk about the discussion worksheet that will assist you in putting together this agreement that you're going to take. And like Dad said, this is not going to be complete tonight. It will be multiple sit-downs and multiple times of being very intentional with each other. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with some final thoughts and Dad's charge to both students and parents as we go into these next stage of your life.
All right, so let's get into it. I want to share with you guys our family ministry strategy. And I know several of you in here tonight were at the event we had a couple weeks ago where we introduced this to a select few parents. And so tonight, I'm just going to give you a 1 to 2 minute recap of what that is. And really, our strategy is this. We want to position mom and dad as the primary faith trainer in the lives of their children. That's the goal. And so it's rooted in these ideas of spiritual milestones. That's not something that we in America do a very good job of celebrating. They do in other cultures, other countries, in celebrating in these milestones, but we don't do a very good job. We're going to bring that to Fearless. And so we're super excited about it. We have 6 different milestones, and I'm just going to go through them really quickly. And our very first one will come up if I turn my clicker on. There we go. Our very first was milestone 1, and that is family dedication. This is just where you come and dedicate your child to Christ. And we as a church, we want to stand behind you, help support and encourage you. And quite honestly, parents, we want to help hold you accountable to do that. And so that is our very first one. Our second one is faith commitment. And that's just leading your child to Christ. How cool would it be for a child who gets older can come back and say, my mom and dad led me to Christ. It wasn't something that happened at a church camp somewhere or when I went off to college, but my mom and dad led me to Christ. We want to be able to set mom and dad up to be able to kick that field goal pretty easy. And so then we move on to milestone 3, preparation for adolescence. This is middle school. Students, didn't y'all love middle school? Wasn't it awesome? Yeah, y'all aren't saying anything. It really sucked, didn't it? Can we say that in church? It sucked. Let me let you know something. It did for us parents too. And so we want to prepare our parents so they can prepare their students that are going into middle school. A lot of things change in middle school.
I started losing my hair in middle school, I think.
Yeah. He finally got sexy. That's okay. This is good. He joined the club. All right, so we go into milestone 4. We're still in middle school, and this is commitment to purity. And so this is where we start talking about those icky stuff of sex and what does biblical intimacy look like. And so, again, this is still in middle school. And then we move to milestone 5. This is one of my favorite ones, probably because the event that we had around my boys' rite of passage was really cool. Hayden is still jealous because you learn on the first one, right? And so Mason's was a little bit more in depth, but we had a really cool event, rite of passage, and you can talk to me about it afterwards if you want to know about it. But it's just really good. It's about the age of 16. Students are getting their license then. Many of them are starting to work. And so we start thinking, what is biblical manhood? What does biblical womanhood look like at this time? And so then we move on to milestone 6, and that's high school graduation. We're going to have an event sometime later on in the spring where we'll actually celebrate you high school seniors that are graduating this year. Tonight is the preparation for that. So we're going to talk about what life after high school looks like. So that is our Fearless Families flight plan. We are super excited about it, and this is going to be our very first milestone that we're talking about here. So let's move into vision real quick. So we're going to talk about vision. We really can't go anywhere without it. Proverbs 29:18 tells us, where there is no vision, the people what? Perish. The people perish. So students, I want to challenge you. This is something that you should be wrestling with. Where do I want to be in the next 4 years? Where do I want to be in the next 10 years? More importantly, where does God want me in the next 4 years? We want you to share that with your parents and use them as a sounding board. And you may be sitting out there saying, yeah, that sounds great. I have no earthly idea what I want to do in 4 years. I don't know what I want to do next year. I can't figure out if I'm going to go to college or go to work or the military. I have no idea. We want to let you know that's okay. So we're going to go through a little bit of a process tonight because we want to start with vision first and then move on to plan and agreement later. So whenever you're seeking out this vision of what to do after high school, I'd suggest that you ask these 3 questions. And this first one is, what is my calling from Christ? What is my calling from Christ? Second one, what are my aptitudes? Some of you may be saying, what the heck is an aptitude? We're going to talk about it here in a second. And then finally, what is my path? What is my path? So let's start real quick from the calling from Christ. Spend a little bit of time here seeking out this idea of where does God fit into the picture? Does he have anything to say on the subject?
Yeah, so a great place to start is with the Great Commission. And so in Matthew 28, this is right after Jesus was crucified and rose again, and it's kind of in that period where some people had seen him, some people hadn't. Rumors were floating around about, is he alive, is he not? And then he comes in front of his disciples, and that's where we pick up in verse 18. Then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you, and surely I'm with you always to the very end of the age. So I think the question that we can pull from that is, how much does your relationship with Jesus and your personal calling, how is that going to influence the next few years of your life? This is not a tag along. This is not, oh yeah, I'm going to check the Jesus box when I'm filling out my application for school, when I'm applying for jobs. This is the foundation from where we start. And for me, over the past few years, really, in my prayer life and my meditation time, I've been just kind of thinking about this idea of sacrifice and how sacrifice is really, it's a uniquely human thing of all God's creations. We were the only ones capable of it. This idea of delaying temporary gratification, temporal pleasure right now, for the hope and promise of tenfold rewards later. I mean, the idea of setting aside food for the harvest. Up till now, saving for your 401k. So in retirement, hopefully it'll still be there amidst all these COVID times, but we're hoping it's still there, right?
Let's hope.
Yeah. But that's something that's ingrained into us. That's something that God has built into us. And when you are going into these next 4 years of your life, students, there's a social contract that you're making with society of, I'm going to give you 4 years of my life and $100,000 of my money, and hopefully I will have a good job, a good life, great salary, and hopefully our idea of the American dream.
Sounds perfect to me.
Yeah, and the problem is with that is what we unconsciously do is we're doing that with God as well. In that, God, let me go do my thing. I'm going to go have fun in college, workforce, military, whatever it might be. And then after that, then I will serve you with the job that you've given me and the great salary that you've given me. The problem is that's so contrary to the message of the gospel. Salvation, it's not a gift to be bargained for. Like, you can't bargain with God. I mean, Romans 6 talks about the wages of sin is death, but the free gift from God is eternal life. And so there's nothing that you can do to earn your way into that. So the price to be paid is your bodies. Later on, Paul talks about in Romans 12, he urges us to offer your entire bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God, because this is now your spiritual act of worship. So how do we take that into to our next steps of life is we start looking at it with an eternal lens. And I mentioned that word earlier, and that's been a word that God's been growing in my heart is, how do I take this job, which could be awesome, could be sucky, but how do I take this job and use it to glorify God? How can I be a more effective vessel for Christ? And so the reason why we start out with that vision is because it can be really easy, and I'm sure you guys are experiencing this now. It's really easy to get lost in the details of the scholarship applications, of did I fill out my FAFSA? Am I writing all my essays right? Am I not plagiarizing them? Am I citing everything like I should? And it's really easy to lose sight of the goal is not success with like our American mindset. The goal is more Christ.
Oh. Good stuff. So why is this important? Well, I'll tell you right now, statistics tell us that somewhere between 65 and 85% of high school seniors, that's many of you here, when they graduate and leave home, walk away from the faith, many never to return. That's a staggering number. And I think it happens because our students don't ever own their own faith. It's mom and dad's. And mom and dad, it's our responsibility to live that out for them. Because you heard Chris talk about more is caught than taught in parenting. And the question is, parents, are we owning our faith? Do our students see us owning our faith? For some of you, you may be looking at this thinking, oh my goodness. If I didn't, it's too late now. I want to encourage you that it's not. One of our youth pastors back in Texas, whenever he was a junior in high school, he saw his father start taking his faith more serious. He actually saw him be more vulnerable and share with him his own struggles in his faith. And I'll tell you that vulnerability, parents, is huge. My youngest one told me when we were struggling, why would I share anything with you, Dad, when you don't share anything with me? Are we vulnerable with where we are in our faith? He got to watch his father have a quiet time at the breakfast table. And he got closer and closer and closer to him, and it impacted his life immensely. So parents, it's never too late. The question is, are we modeling for our children what we want them to take with them? Because that's what they will do. What is it that we're modeling? All right, so let's move on real quick to this idea of aptitude. You say, what in the heck is an aptitude? Well, these things that are things that are innate. They're a result of inheritance and early development. These are your natural strengths, the things that you're good at. Now, don't misconstrue this. It's not about your knowledge or how smart you are. And these aptitudes kind of take root at about the age of 14. They're set by then. So wherever you are right now, students, your aptitudes are there. So let's don't confuse it real quick with this idea of interest or passions. You know, everybody's got a passion about something. That's not what an aptitude is. You see, interest and passions are a result of what you do, what you learn, who you know, and they change throughout your life. Have y'all ever heard the phrase, to follow your passions, follow your dreams, and you'll never work a day in your life? You ever heard that? Probably one of the worst pieces of advice that you can ever receive. Sounds good on a pillow. But those change throughout your whole life. Mom and Dad, you know it. Your passions change. Your interests change. Why would I dedicate 10 years of my life and literally hundreds of thousands of dollars? Because I have a passion for medicine and get on the other side of a doctorate degree and learn that you hate your job. But you say, I got a passion for it. Okay. That doesn't mean that that's something that you'll be good at. So Hayden, tell us your story about this whole passion.
Yeah, so I grew up in the crux of the millennial, go get them, shoot for the stars, you can do anything you want, and you'll succeed, And being told that my whole life, I followed that to the letter. So I've been involved in music for a long time. When I was a kid, y'all put me in piano lessons at 5, which was awesome. Love that you did it. But when I was in middle school, I got started in the worship team, and I was playing keys for our worship team back at home, and loved it. I mean, some of my most intimate experiences with the Lord has been through worship. And while at the same time I'm being told by everybody, hey, follow your dreams and make a career out of it, that's what I did. So I decided to major in music, and the problem is I left out a little detail. I can't sing worth a lick, and I don't know if you ever heard a worship leader that can't sing, but they're not that great at their job. It doesn't work out too well. So if we're talking about aptitudes and something that you're passionate about, I wish that there was something I had, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, that could direct what I knew, how God created me, my aptitudes, and direct them into a career path, because too many options is not always a good thing. I mean, I know, and some of y'all might be feeling this right now. I mean, when you have the world is your oyster, and you have all of these potential ideas, I was paralyzed by indecision. It was my problem. And so one thing I wish I would have done is had some way of drilling down how God created me, and maybe narrow down some of the choices. And so I think we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so welcome to one of our first failings as parents in this area. The week before Laura and I moved to Ohio, Hayden and I got to spend some quality time hanging out at his pool at his apartment, and just reminisced, over the past many, many years, and had some really frank discussions. And he posed one question to me that took me off guard. And he said, "Why didn't you stop me? Why didn't you tell me that I shouldn't do that degree?" I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be that parent that squatted on my kids' dreams. And I didn't realize the influence that I really had. And so I struggled. It was something that I wished I would have I wish I would have had something like this test that Hayden's talking about, and I really want to move into that. There's an organization out there called the Johnson O'Connor Research Foundation. We talked about this last year whenever we presented this material, and I don't believe I pushed it strongly enough. I didn't have this for Hayden. I did for my youngest son, Mason, and it proved to be very, very beneficial. It helped point him towards his career in industrial engineering, and now he has a fantastic job and provides well for his family. They have centers all over the nation. We had one in Dallas. The closest one to here is Chicago. Don't let that scare you. Book it. Get online and book it. Y'all make a trip out of it. It's one full day of testing, and then at the end of that day, they will come back and go over their results with you. Again, they're not testing to see what your knowledge is. They're not looking to see how smart you are. They look at all the different aptitudes that are out there. And then what's cool, when they sit down and meet with you, they give you a list of careers that follow those aptitudes. How stinking cool is that? And I almost didn't do it with my youngest because it cost money. Right now, it's about $750, or that's what it was last year. How many parents would not sniff at $750 and yet drop major bank on a degree, not even knowing if that's the aptitude of their student? Are y'all following me? Does this make sense? At the very least, go to their website, look it up, find out about it. I'm telling you, we had a great, great experience with it. All right, so let's move on here to pick your path. So students, what do you want to do? What do you want to do when you grow up, right? So let's take a real quick poll. Anybody out there after high school? I just want to go straight into the workforce. Maybe I even want to be an entrepreneur. Anybody out there want to go into workforce? Everybody's scared to say that. Probably there's very few people that can actually do it. Entrepreneurship sounds great and sexy on paper, but it's a lot of work. True people that make this work are working 80, 90 hours a week. I love Chris talks about to dream big, start small, simple, and strategic. That's what you would need to do there. I had a buddy back in Granbury. He just wasn't a college kind of guy. Didn't like education. He mowed lawns while he was in high school. He said, you know what? I think that's what I'm going to do. So he started his own landscaping company. And inside of 20 years, he's a millionaire. He didn't have a degree, but he had drive, and he worked his hiney off. You can do it. It just depends on what you're willing to do. Military. Anybody want to go in the military? Raise your hand. I know we got a parent raising a hand over here. That's awesome. All right, so we got a couple possibly going in the military, all right? Lots of ways: enlist, ROTC, military academy. Guys, if y'all are juniors and seniors in here, if y'all haven't started that process, I would tell you it's almost too late. That's got to start back in 9th grade. You got to have a letter from your congressman. There's a lot that goes into going into a military academy. And then finally, continuing education. Anybody, whether it be 2-year, 4-year vocational college, raise your hand high. Yeah? Some don't know. That's okay. That's all right if you don't know. That's all right. Well, let's talk about continuing education for just a little bit. What does that little piece of paper tell an employer? That diploma that you walk across the stage with when you graduate from college. You know what it tells them? It tells them 3 things. It tells them that you're teachable. Students, are y'all coming home from school right now saying, I am never going to use this stuff that I'm learning in school right now. Is this true? And nobody ever tells you why you have to do it. There is a purpose in it. And if you're going to college, get used to it, because you're going to have a whole lot more of stuff that you will never use in life. Here's the reason that nobody has ever told you, because it's not about what you're learning. It's that, do you have the ability to learn? Are you teachable? Because I can tell you, most employers could give a rip about what you know when you come out of college, because they're going to teach you what they want you to know. There's very little that you're going to come out of college an expert on. You're going to get trained on being a lifelong learner. That's what it tells an employer. Second thing it tells them is that you're motivated. And finally, is that you have the ability to see the bigger picture. You're willing to sacrifice, like what Hayden was talking about earlier. I can see the bigger picture. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm willing to put up with a lot of junk to get my degree. Because guess what your employer is going to give you? A lot of junk. And they want to know, is this young man, is this young lady, do they have the ability to see the light at the end of the tunnel and do something even though they may not understand why? In my estimation, this is what that piece of paper tells an employer. Don't be fooled that you think you're going to come out of college with this great knowledge that you are able to bestow upon communities. It's not what it's telling your employers. All right, so let's look at the advantages of junior college. I'm very grateful that my parents could not afford to send me to a 4-year university, because quite honestly, I was not mature enough to handle a 4-year university, and I would argue that most high schoolers coming out aren't either. Junior college is great. You're supposed to get about 15 hours. I went for 3 semesters. I should have, how many hours is that? 45. Yeah, you can use both hands. That's good. Should have gone to Texas Tech with 45 hours. I went to Texas Tech with a whopping 19. And consequently, my grade average was the same with just a decimal in between those two numbers. So here I am going to Texas Tech with a 1.9 GPA. And you're saying, how is this a good story, Lane? Tell me the punchline. Well, I learned a lot in those year and a half. I got to Tech, I had a 3.5 my first semester. I was so proud of myself. I maintained it till I graduated. Graduated with honors. My wife still beat me, which I still hold against her because she's smarter than me. But I graduated with honors. A 1.9 nobody. Here's what's cool. When you transfer from a junior college to a 4-year university, you get to start over on your GPA. They transfer your credits, but not your GPA. It's just a great thing, and guys, it's cheaper. It's going to save you at least 25%, if not more, depending on what you do. Junior college is a great way to go. Here's the next question. I will tell you that I remember whenever I was your age, going to college was the only option. I got 2 lectures. If y'all are lucky enough as students to only remember 2 lectures that your parents give you, you're very lucky. But I remember 2 lectures that I always got from my dad. Get your education and save for retirement. Get your education and save for retirement. It was just like a battle horn. My friends came over and they got to hear, get your education and save for retirement. It's the way it was, so I did that with my kids. That's the only option. Parents, students, let me tell you something. Today is different. The reason why we say that is we want our kids to have a better opportunity. The wage gap seem to have more money. We want our kids to be successful, and we think the only way to get there is through college. Well, I want to tell you, that's not the case anymore. And for some of you, I'm not saying everybody, for some of you, it may not be the best way. One of the guys I love to watch is Mike Rowe. You remember the guy from Dirty Jobs? He's got some awesome podcasts out there, and some of the statistics I'm going to give you are from him. Did you know that the skills gap that we have in America today, that there are 6.3 million jobs vacant right now? And did you know that 75% of them don't require a degree? Here's what's so stinking cool about living in America. It's good old supply and demand. That's what happens in a capitalistic society. When there is a gap, whenever there is a huge demand in a field that's essential, well, guess what it takes to put heinies in those seats? Money. And there's a lot of people out there that are making a whole lot more money in that. But what do we tell our kids? Go to school. You can't afford it? Go to school. Get a loan. Go to school. Did you realize we have $1.5 trillion in outstanding student debt in our country? And every politician and their dog is trying to make it an issue on what they're running on. We're loaning money to kids that don't have the money to pay it back, to educate them in jobs that don't exist. Do you know 55% of college graduates right now are unemployed or underemployed? 55%. It probably goes to show that also 55% of all college students right now plan to move home when they graduate from college. Here's a more shocking statistic. 85% of the parents think that's a good idea. Guys, I love my kids too much to want them to move home with me. This is not even about them cramping my style and us living our golden years. I love my kids too much for them to want to move home with me. I want them to have a life. I want them to go see the world. I want them to experience success, failures. I want them to find love. They're not going to find that in my basement playing Xbox. I love them too much for that. Should students go to college? Sure. If you're curious and can afford it, go for it. But there's no guarantee there's a job afterwards. There are other options out there. Students, if college is not for you, talk about it with your parents. Research the jobs out there where there's a huge vacuum. See how much they're paying. It might be something worth looking at. Mike Rowe tells about a guy that lives in Colorado. He's a freelance welder. Makes $100 an hour. He works when he wants to. He didn't have to go to a 4-year university for that. I would bet if we were to average everyone's income in this room, we wouldn't sniff at $100 an hour. I'm not saying that's for everybody, guys. All I'm saying is have the discussion. Talk about it. What's right for you? So then Hayden comes to me as one of his things that he talked about, this gap year and his world travels that he's been on, and he's done the Camino de Santiago, 3 times now over in Spain, and he comes to me and tells me, Dad, well, I should have done a gap year. I'm like, what's a gap year? So tell us what a gap year is.
Yeah, that was a fun discussion. So I have had the opportunity to travel pretty extensively over the past 10 years. It's been one of the things that I've really enjoyed about this stage of life that God's been able to bless me with. But one thing that's really common amongst students over in Europe and Australia especially is they take a gap year between graduating from high school and going into the university. And what that looks like is they take a year where they go, it typically more takes on of a service volunteering type role, but it's centered around travel. You get outside of your, you are getting outside of your parents' home for the first time, and you're experiencing the world for yourself. You're getting to know yourself better. You're getting to gain some great experience through volunteering. We've got a packet for y'all at the end of the night that has some great resources in there. But mainly what it is, what I've really enjoyed about my times when I've traveled is just the wilderness moments that the Lord has used to pluck me out of my schedule, my daily American schedule, where I know what I'm going to eat 2 weeks from now. You know, everything's so scheduled out for us, and use that time to really drill deep into just tough conversations, painful things that we bury down under the guise of busyness, and uses that to create more intimate moments with the Lord. And I wish I would have used that time between after graduating and going into university to mature, for one thing, to get to know myself better, my interests, my aptitudes, not my passions. And I guarantee you, if I would have done that, I would not have chosen the major I would have. And I do think that the idea of yes, but not now, I think is really important.
Yeah. I've done a little bit of research on it. In fact, the book that I've got at your table right now talks a little bit about a gap year as well, and we'll talk about that more at the end of the night. Is a gap year for everyone? No. It's probably fewer than it is more, but it's an option. And again, this is not a year of you traveling the world on mom and dad's dime.
No, there's plenty of people that do that, and they turn out worse off because of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very intentional thing.
Absolutely.
As I'm learning about this, and so for some of you, that may be an option. So something to consider. All right, so we're going to break right now. Hayden and all the students are going to go through this back door into room 145. We're going to have 20, 30 minutes of Q&A. Parents are going to hang with me over here in this circle if I put enough chairs over here. And we're just going to kind of hang out for a little bit, have a little bit of a Q&A, and then as soon as that's over, we'll release you to go to the food line, which is right outside this door. If you ordered roast beef, get roast beef. If you ordered chicken, order chicken. We've had a lot more people come in since we purchased our food. So we'll have your meal, and then you'll come back in here, eat as a family. While you're eating, Hayden and I will talk about this plan, this worksheet that you guys are about to go over. And then you guys are going to have some time to just sit and just talk about some things. And it's just a very detailed guide of going through. Again, you're not going to finish it tonight. It's just to get started, okay? All right, let's go. Let's talk about plan. Proverbs 16:3 says, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. Notice that he didn't say he will bless your plans. He says he will establish your plans. And so that's part of what we're doing right here is committing what we do to the Lord. And so as you're going to be looking at your discussion worksheet, you'll notice that it's pretty in-depth. Don't let that overwhelm you. You're not going to finish tonight. This is just a starting point. So take this document and devour it like you would an elephant, one bite at a time. So what we would tell you guys as you start this, begin as you mean to go. And what I mean by that is just be purposeful in what you do about your future. As you're planning that, be purposeful. Determine which parts are non-negotiable, stick to them, but make sure that you leave some margin in there to be able to respond to those things that are unpredictable, because you're going to have some surprises that come along. Take the lead. Students, this discussion worksheet, I'm going to ask that you lead that discussion. And I've already instructed your parents, to let you lead that discussion. Parents, you'll be surprised at the level of expectations your students will place on themselves if they are given the freedom to think about it without a parent always establishing every point. Give your students that freedom to take ownership in this. And so before you dive into the plan tonight, we want to highlight just a few of the areas. I'm not going to hit all of them by any stretch of the imagination, but I do want to hit on some of them. The first one is social. This is one of the areas in your discussion worksheet tonight. I will tell you, both of my boys would tell you that getting connected early on, whether that be at college, military, anywhere else, is vital. It's vital to your success. Hayden's roommate didn't get connected. He was gone by the end of the semester or year. He didn't last long.
Yeah, I think it lasted about a year.
Our niece didn't get connected. She didn't even make it through the entire semester. She started college this fall. She's already home. Students, please don't underestimate this. It is vital to get connected. Many colleges have a freshman camp that I highly recommend you go to. Texas A&M had a Christian version of a freshman camp, and it was awesome. Mason met his tightest, closest friends at this camp, and he hung with them the entire time he was at college. Make sure that you put yourself out there. Anything you want to say on that? Hank?
Yeah, my first year, I got connected with some of my closest friends there as well. But what's important is maintaining that social interaction and being intentional with those people that you've deemed close enough to be vulnerable and trust. Because it's very easy, for me, it was my sophomore year. I was sharing with some of the students earlier. It was my sophomore year when I started dating a girl pretty seriously from college, and we kind of self-ostracized from everybody else. Like our accountability partners, our mentors, we kind of turned inward, and it proved to be very toxic for the both of us. And so not only in freshman year, but maintain those friendships and be intentional about continuing those throughout your entire time there.
That's good stuff. And then community. That's why we have community groups in high school here. We want students to know what real friendships are like. And like Hayden was saying, have those people that are afraid, that aren't afraid to tell you the truth. They're not just going to roll around in the mud with you, but they're going to be honest with you. They love you enough to do that. Make your decisions about your plan during periods of strength. Because students, if you wait till you're in a situation when you're weak, odds are you're going to make the wrong decision. A great example is guidelines in dating. So students, what are your guidelines in dating? Not your moms and dads. What are yours? Because mom and dad's not going to follow you to college or military or wherever else. This is your ownership here. What are your guidelines in dating? Because if you wait, as far as this whole thing, making your decisions during periods of strength, if you wait till you find yourself in your boyfriend's dorm room to determine what your guidelines on dating are, again, odds are you're going to make the wrong decision. Have those locked down now during a period of strength. Are y'all following me? All right, so what's this about adulting, hey?
I love this word. So adulting is just smack out of the millennial generation, how we turn the noun of adult into a verb. And because none of us want to do anything that has any responsibility ever. But so the idea of adulting, so by raise of hands, who knows, this should be an easy one, who knows how to do their own laundry? Cool. Good. The follow-up question, who actually does their own laundry?
Mom and dad are present, so they're...
There you go. Mom, dad, that says more about y'all than the students.
Oh,
Who
y'all
knows?
just thought they were going to get slammed.
Who knows how to change a tire? Yeah. Girls, you're not exempt from this either.
Good for you.
There's, get it, yeah. So AAA does not come out everywhere. And there will be periods of time where cell service will fail. And you'll need to figure out how to do that. And so we're talking about these things just being prepared for being an adult in life. One of my favorite memories with Dad is my first car. When I was 16, it was this old car that had been in the family for years. It was a big red 95 Silverado. I called her Karen because she had the personality of an old lady. And so we decided that this was a truck that hadn't been working in years, and we decided in all of our mechanical expertise or lack thereof, that we were going to dive in and do a complete engine overhaul, and embarked on probably about a 5-6 month journey of turmoil and pain and frustration with each other.
We had no idea what we were doing.
Not at all. But through YouTube, the grace of YouTube and instruction manuals that were so old that we could barely even read them, we did it, and it was incredible. So when I did go into college and my car broke down, which happened often, I was able to allay a lot of that cost that I would have had to pay going to the mechanic and fixed it myself. So that's something that I value, the knowledge that we learned through that so much, that I took into my life after high school, and something I hope to do with my kids one day as well. Cool. Also, basic health, nutrition and exercise. Ooh, this one crept up on me with the freshman 15, real quick. So it's one thing to be, at home with mom and dad eating a cooked meal, and then a whole other thing going into freshman year of college when Whataburger and In-N-Out and IHOP at 3 a.m. is your daily diet. And that will happen. That cafeteria food has no nutritional value at all. And so that freshman 15 becomes a sophomore 30, and really easy that can get over you. So as far as just maintaining your health, be an adult, start setting guidelines of exercise, start setting guidelines of learn how to cook. That's another thing, is we grew up cooking in the kitchen together, and one thing that helped me a lot is when I moved out from the dorm and got my own apartment that had a kitchen in it, is cooking a whole lot. And so that's another good thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the one your parents all came for. Finances. Who pays for what? What's great, parents or students, we're not even going to talk about who pays for what tonight. We're going to save that discussion for another time. But here's the question. Here's the thing that you guys need to think about. The number one rule, don't assume. That's for parents and students alike. Don't assume. Make sure that you have the conversation. Now, let's deal with all of the uncomfortable, not fun stuff now. So whenever it comes time for mom and dad to come see you at college or wherever else that you are, it's actually a pleasant experience, and you're not having to catch up on all of the bad things that went on. Make sure that you lock them down now. So there's a couple of different ways that you can look at doing your finances. One way some parents do is they pay a percentage. I think we heard about that during the parent breakout, where parents may pay a certain percentage of it. It may be 25, 50, 75, 100. Here's the thing. I'm not here to judge how you guys determine what that is. Y'all figure it out. The thing is, you got to talk about it. Another one is just to flat them out. I have this much saved up money that I'm going to help you with. Loans. Whew, that's where it gets a little tricky, doesn't it? Are they a good idea? Who's responsible to pay them off? Only get them if you have to. Guys, I had dinner with a guy last year here, since I've moved to Ohio. He was telling me about a young kid that they just hired out of college for IT. Smart kid. Absolutely loves this kid as an employee. Not a kid anymore. He's a grown man. He probably pays him $35,000 a year. A student graduated from college with over $100,000 in student debt. Is that $35,000 salary going to pay for that? See, someone didn't guide that young man. He took out the full loan every single time. He swiped his card. They put so much of this money on the account, and if they didn't use it every semester, it went away. So he went home with cases of Gatorade and Cheetos because he had to spend his money before the semester was up. And walked into a $35,000 a year job owing $100,000. That's double the cost of my first home. Sometimes they may be necessary, but just use them cautiously. Credit cards, get ready for the credit card mail to start coming. You'll probably get one or two a week till they really realize that you're a college student, and then you'll get dozens. And if they can just get you to answer one, if they can just get you to fill out one, they've got you. And then you'll start going into this high interest rate that you'll never pay off. Be careful about that. Because the only 4-letter word that matters in this discussion is debt. What are you willing to graduate college with? I'll give you the MEEK plan. The MEEK plan was really simple. I used the flat amount. I gave both my boys $20,000 for college. For them, in a public college, that's about a quarter of their education. They were responsible for the rest of it. It made it very simple. I didn't have to worry about a certain percentage and whether or not a bill was paid or whatever. It was just a flat dollar amount. It made it simple for me. I'm a simple guy. Hayden, my oldest, off the chart smart, much smarter than his daddy. 34 on the ACT, first time he takes it. Smart. He's got a full ride to his school. In fact, they paid him to go to school. Those are rare. The days of getting scholarships because you're in the top 10% of your class are gone. He still needed a little bit of help here and there. We paid him some money throughout his college career. I stroked him out a check for $12,000 when he graduated. Pretty nice little graduation gift. Mason, not so much. He's a smart kid too. He's in the top 10% of his class. He barely got a whiff of a scholarship, maybe $1,000, maybe $2,000. A lot of work to go in for very little reward on that. You got to be willing to put in some effort. You got to be willing to put in some effort. Again, I'm not saying what you should do. That's what we did. But whenever you're going to determine, guys, here's what's very, very important. Whenever you're going to choose your college, make sure that you guys don't miss this. Does the chosen profession, is it going to pay for the school that you're going to? So Hayden, even as smart as he was, he wanted to go to TCU. At the time, that was about $45,000 a year. Y'all tell me, if he were to go into his field of choice, which was wanted to be a worship pastor, is a worship pastor's salary going to pay for $45,000 a year? If you don't know that question, go ask Matt Missler. And by the way, I think it's like $65,000 to go to TCU now. Yeah. If you're going to be a teacher, we need them. Don't go to a college that costs $45,000 a year. You got to be thinking about, how am I going to pay this off? Does the profession of my choice equal the education that I'm getting? It's got to equal that. You've got to get your return on your investment. All right. Topics of trouble. Parents, listen to me real quick. Don't overlook these real possibilities. The devil is cunning. He comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And here's my question to you. Would your student trust you enough to come to you if they were involved in one of these topics of trouble? Would they know that you would respond with love and truth? Or that you would react with fear, embarrassment, dare I say, anger? Have that discussion with your student. Do they trust you enough to come to you with one of these things? I don't have them listed here. They're in your document for tonight. And you may think, oh, my little Hayden, that wouldn't happen to him. Guess again. In fact, I would put money on it that at least one of them, maybe multiple of those things happen, because y'all know things happen. Have we built the relationship with our students to where they trust us to come to us regardless of how bad they screwed up? Garner that trust with them. Have fun, but be responsible. Students, you're never going to have this time again, this unique situation to experience life with your parents as a buffer. Suck the marrow out of this. Enjoy it as much as you can. All right, so hopefully we've talked long enough for you guys to get through with your meal. Hayden, would you start handing out those worksheets? We're going to hand out a discussion worksheet. We got one for each person. Again, we want students to drive the bus on this. And when you get through with this, there'll be an agreement. Amos 3:3 says, "Can two walk together except they be agreed?" And what happens with this, you're going to take the information from your document tonight, students. And once you guys finish that later on at home, in the coming weeks, you're going to take that information and put it on the agreement. And this is going to allow you both to respond to situations rather than to react to them. Because situations will happen, trust me on it. Rule number one, guys, say what you mean and mean what you say. Say what you mean and mean what you say. All right, so we're going to give you from 6:50 right now till 7:20, 7:25 to work on this document. Again, don't get hung up on any one topic. Parents, students, how was that? Was that painful? Was it good? There's a lot to talk about, huh? A lot of information in there. A lot of information in there. Well, let me real quick, before I give you guys my final thoughts. One thing that I forgot to say before the break that I wanted to talk about, because I mentioned a little bit about this political debate about what to do with all this student debt. There's one argument that you never hear from any political pundit out there. It's not something you're going to see on CNN. You're not going to see it on Fox News. But there is an answer to the student debt. But nobody ever seems to want to talk about it. And it's very simple. Anybody guess what it is?
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it.
That's good.
It's 3 words. Get a job. Get a job. For some reason, we have fallen prey to this idea that my student will not have time to work and do their studies. Can I put an end to that myth tonight? Both of my boys worked through college. They didn't work the first semester because connecting was the most important thing that first semester. But after that, they worked. They both worked in country clubs. By the time they were seniors, they were managers at those country clubs because they've got a strong work ethic. And that's attractive these days. And they worked anywhere from 30 to 35 hours a week and went to school full time. And oh, by the way, my youngest got married while he was in college. And although Hayden had a music degree, he was still in honors courses. Mason went to a prestigious university and got a degree in industrial engineering. That's no easy feat. That's no easy feat. He got an industrial engineering degree and worked 30, 35 hours a week. His senior year, he worked upwards to 40, 45 hours a week and was married. So the excuse that comes my way that, oh, my students don't have time, I want them to concentrate on their studies, is just not a valid excuse. And Mason, as I said, is not the smartest kid in school. Top 10%er, barely. But it can be done. I want you guys to know that there is hope out there. And by the way, getting a job kind of helps keep you out of trouble too. It's kind of hard to get in trouble when you're working and going to school. And by the way, let me tell you something. Mason had a full college experience. They went dancing at Hurricane Harry's. They went to football games. They had a blast. He had a full life in college. You can still do it. There are answers out there. Don't get pigeonholed in one thing. Okay? All right, so let's go on to my final thoughts. And this first part is just for our parents. And I want our parents to be able to give our kids the freedom to fail. This starts now. Parents, your students will make mistakes. It may seem like the end of the world, but it's not. Can I tell you something? I wanted my sons to fail. I wanted them to fail under my watch, where I had some sort of influence in them. If our kids are so protected that they are never given the freedom to fail, one of 2 outcomes will happen, if not both. The first, they will experience failure after graduation and have no skill set as to how to deal with it. Number 2, they just move home. And trust me, this is happening in droves right now. Parents, do not rob your student the gift of exercising their struggle muscle. It's crucial to their development. And let's face it, it's what made you you. You know, we always want, you ever say, I want my kids to have it better than me? But when we do that, we often want to remove all the obstacles that made you you. And they are the things that happened that gave you the skill set to be able to cope in life. I want my kids to have it better than me too, but not at the expense of keeping them from experiencing pain and failure. Give them that freedom to fail. and then be there to give wise counsel, but let them accept the responsibility. And stand back and watch your young adult soar and rise to the top. Parent, there's a great phrase that I learned from my brother, who has no children, by the way, which just really ticks me off. The best piece of parenting advice I can have for parents of teenagers is this phrase, you'll figure it out. We were struggling with our youngest, and we were doing our best to lecture him to death. And I was talking with my little brother one day, and he said, yeah, I go, man, that sounds a lot like my relationship with Mom whenever I was little. I'm like, what are you talking about? Said, Mom was up my business 24/7. I just couldn't do anything right. And then he said one day she just said, you're a smart kid, you'll figure it out. And turned around and walked away. And the more times that she said that, the more he would actually want to seek her advice. So I said, heck, we'll try it. We're kind of at the end of our rope. So we started doing that with Mason. He wasn't devoid of responsibility. There were still consequences for his actions. He just wasn't going to get a 30-minute lecture on top of it. You're a smart kid, you'll figure it out. And all of a sudden, we started gaining a respect with our son. And now he seeks our counsel. It's a great, great tool. See, your students are hitting that dominion phase. And that's something that's innate in them, to want to start taking dominion over what's going on. And when mom and dad interfere 24/7 with that, it causes conflict. Give them those opportunities to figure it out. Don't try to solve every problem that they have. Another one is give them space. Guys, you can build a lot of trust here if you just give them room to breathe. Stretch their wings and experience life without you for a couple of weeks. So here's some things to think about. Frequencies of calls. How often should mama be calling while you're at school? How often should you be calling back? Parents, can I just give you a little tip? Limit the frequency and the duration of your calls. The more the student initiates, the more freedom they find. So what that means is when you do talk to them, it's not time for 21 questions. Are you doing your homework? You got a girlfriend? You got a boyfriend? How late did y'all stay out last night? What'd you have for supper? Are you getting enough food to eat? They're going to want to suck on the end of a tailpipe after about one of those conversations. And just say, take me out, Lord. And we wonder why they don't call us. Let those conversations be joyful. You don't need to talk about their grades because you've already put it down in an agreement that you're going to do in a couple weeks. You can talk about that at the end of the semester when you get the report card. Don't hound them about whether or not they're getting their homework done or how late they're staying out. They're going to figure that out. Probably the hard way. Just like you did. You know, we've talked a lot about different stages of parenting since I've been here, and I know Chris and Andy have gone through this whole thing as well, but parents, your students are in the game of life now. You can't run the place for them. You can call a timeout from time to time, but your student is quarterbacking the play. And parents, we've got to make that transition from directing our students by our authority and coaching them through your influence. Parents who fail to make that transition make it a very difficult relationship in the future. Don't miss out on the most rewarding stage of parenting, and that's friendship. It's more than I ever dreamed it'd be. It's sweet. Students, my final thoughts for you. A quarterback who fails to call a timeout to confer with his coach often loses the game because he thinks he can do it alone. Men and women, and that's what I call you. You are entering into a sometimes scary but exciting time of life. Don't forget that mom and dad are on your team, and they're not only wise coaches, they're your biggest cheerleader. Seek their wise counsel. Celebrate your victories and learn to trust them to guide you through your failures. But students, listen, don't depend on them to bail you out. It's easy to own your successes. It's even harder to own your failures. Seek their counsel, but don't expect them to bail you out. Accept responsibility and allow your struggle muscle to develop so you'll be able to fend off the bigger challenges that will surely come later in life. That's your charge, students. That's your charge, parents. I hope that you take from tonight something new that you hadn't thought about before. I hope possibly a discussion was brought up that maybe wasn't there before. And thank you, Hayden, for coming and helping. Real quick, we are going to dismiss here in just a second. And anyone can go whenever they're ready. Before we do, I've got a book on everyone's desk there, and it's called The Coddling of the American Mind. I highly recommend that both parents and students read this book. It is an excellent work on what is going on in our universities today. It's a fantastic resource. It addresses a lot of things regarding anxiety and depression, which I will tell you that those numbers are soaring right now amongst our teenagers. It's a great resource. I didn't have time to put it so much in our presentation, but I did want to mention something about it. It's a really, really good book. And so with that...
It has a lot to do. No, it has a lot to do with what you just talked about with the idea of taking responsibility. And there's a correlation between the rise of anxiety and depression in college students and safe spaces. And the lack, like we are pushing kids to not ever have to take responsibility for anything. I think that goes contrary to the way God created us. And, we were created in the image of God who sent his son to take responsibility of the world, and we're encouraging our kids to not take that same responsibility instead of encouraging them to pursue that. So it goes into a little bit of that idea.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, so before we dismiss you guys, I would like for you to hear from a much prettier half of me. And I've asked Laura to come up and kind of share a couple of words that she may have, and then we'll hang out and answer questions as long as you guys like.
So I just wanted to share with you a little bit from a tiny bit of a mom perspective. I won't take very long, but there are a lot of moms in here. So whenever we were getting close to this young man, getting close to that graduation mark, and when I said close, probably like when he was about 1, I started stressing about him going off and leaving me one day. So all of this sounds great and beautiful, but it was not beautiful for me. So that's about when we met Chris and Christelle. I think Hayden, we knew you before that, but we started community group when he was a senior, right? And like the waterworks started probably about February of that year. And I did not stop crying until we dropped him off, and probably a few days, weeks later.
Months.
So husbands, be really kind to your women. So a couple of things though, as they were saying, especially like on the responsibility side. I was a stay-at-home mom for many years, and while I knew I needed to give my kids responsibility, and we were big about that, I still, as a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or not, but my thought process was, that was part of my job, and I needed to do that for them. I taught them to do laundry, but I still did their laundry because I was home all day, and why would I not do their laundry? But I wasn't setting them up for success. And so we had many discussions, and he encouraged me a lot to, you really need to let them do this. This is something that is better for them than for you to do it for them. So I really had to just, stand my ground. And even when I saw laundry like piling up and all this, I was like, oh, don't do their laundry, don't do their laundry. And really, they were so grateful later when they went to college and could do their laundry, and half of the kids or more did not know what to do. Another thing is, even when they go off to college, continue to let them do those things. Now, when they would come home, that was a great thing that I could do for them, and I did. So he just had to back off. But I knew many moms that went to college, visited their kids went to college. They would go visit every couple of weeks, and they would clean their sons. These were moms of boys that I knew. They would clean their sons' dorms. They would do all their laundry, and they would leave. And it just blew my mind. But I knew I probably would have been that mom had I not just trained myself to let them continue to do things on their own. So that's my first encouragement to you moms. My second is, for those of you who are married, continue dating your spouse, because it is scary. And if you're not married, I know many single mom friends that found kind of an outlet to start taking some time of theirs that they knew would be there when their kids left. So I just always encourage you, continue to date your spouse, or if you're a single parent, find something that you can do that is really engaging for you to have that when they go, because it is a bit scary. He was all excited. He was like, we are going to have so much time together. We got married young. We had him young. And we didn't have a whole lot of time on the front end of our marriage for just us. So he was like, we are finally getting time. And I was like, woo, I don't want time. So anyway, so we were talking about that out there. I really did. I struggled with it. But it's kind of natural if your kids are pretty busy, their last couple of years of high school, that we did end up with a little bit more, it kind of eased us into it. But find something to do that you enjoy, or if you're married, you and your spouse enjoy, and start kind of building into that as for this year, if you have a senior, or for the next 2 years. So those are my 2 words of encouragement.
Awesome.